everybody in Progress Report land. This is,
We own the land, Bob.
we own the land. This land is your land. This land is my land. And this is, as if you've been watching, you know that this is very bittersweet because this is going to be our last show as a team here on this facility. This is it. This the last Wednesday in July is our last show.
We're ceasing all progressive operations as of tonight.
And it's starting with the time when we were doing this on a tape thing, and then down at the commercial street facility we had down there. This will be into our 14th year of doing it live. If we continued to December, that would have been 14. But Mike tells me that counting the shows we did on tape, we have indeed been doing this for 14 years. And I want to talk a little bit about that, but we got something from Mike to start off with.
Well, if let's get this out of the way. I felt obligated to do a video, and I figured since it's our last show, we'll touch a topic that's kind of a tough topic to touch. Now, I want to point out, we here are not taking the position that we're comparing anyone who might be a political opponent to the person who's going to come up in this video. That's not what's happening. What is happening is these people are embracing that person. So why don't we roll the tape and see what they have
The top 5 Hitler stands by Republicans. Coming in at number 5, co-founder of Moms for Liberty, Tiffany Justice, at their recent annual conference.
One of our moms in a newsletter quotes Hitler. Woo! I stand with that mom.
Number 4, Candace Owens.
If Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine.
Candace helped usher in Republicans' Hitler era, shifting focus away from his atrocities. You might think number 3 goes to Donald Trump.
Trump told his chief of staff Hitler did a lot of good things.
But that was in private, unlike Carl Palladino, who publicly discussed Hitler's sex appeal.
Hitler, he aroused the crowds. That's the kind of leader we need today, somebody that is a doer.
Shout out to Hitler's famous ability to get things done. At number 2 is Congresswoman Mary Miller, because she actually uses the phrase,
Hitler was right. He said, whoever has the youth has the future.
Before number 1, here are some honorary mentions.
That quote was in 1925 in his book, Mein Kampf.
For 2 years, Hitler lived on the streets and practiced his oratory, then went on to lead a life that got him in the history books.
All fire, but coming in at number 1,
I like Hitler.
Kanye is simply an old-fashioned romantic. He couldn't love Kim because there was only room for one special person in his heart.
Hitler has a lot of redeeming qualities. He had a really cool outfit, and he was a really good architect. There's a lot of things that I love about Hitler.
Thanks for watching, and check me out on Be Right with more content for the Hitler Hive.
Again, I want to point out we are not pointing the finger at anybody. We are just putting this out. These are statements made by these people on camera. Earlier in my life, I wouldn't have thought people would be making statements kind of like that, but there we have it. This is where we've come to.
Oh boy. I don't know, Mike. You saved a real dart there for the end of the
Hey, it's the last show. What are they going to do? Fire us, Bob? You know, don't fire Bob. Fire
They
me.
didn't fire us when you brought in the green beer on St. Patrick's Day, although we did get plenty of criticism for that.
Well, we've been the bad boys of public television, I guess, and I can't help myself, I suppose, Bob. But we've got a phone call. Maybe I've ignited controversy. I really didn't want to do that, but okay. Hello, caller. You're live on the Progress Report. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I wonder who this is.
Oh, I know who this is.
Bob. Work with me.
I think we can recognize your voice and your.
It's Arnie Arneson.
You know your feisty self.
This is your last night.
Last night, Arnie, and I want to thank you so much for the times you've come in and been on our show. I really loved it when you could be here in person, and when you decided that was no more than you wanted to do, driving from Concord when it would be dark out. You appeared many times via Skype. We enjoyed that too. Every time you've been on, it's been a ball, and you have so much knowledge. You're so informed, and as I was telling our guests, you're never at a loss of words, Arnie. Everybody agrees on that. And you always had
the knowledge, the insight,
and the knowledge and the insights, and just your media savvy and your passion, and you're such a well-informed person. I just want to thank you for being a big part of making this show a success. And by the way, Arnie, we don't have a real good outreach to our viewers, so we don't have a whole lot of data. another way we're different from 60 Minutes. But we do know that people liked you. Well, they liked you, or sometimes, a rare occasion, they didn't like you.
I've been around a long time, Bob, so they have no choice. So I was like, sorry, honey, but you realize I have been doing a variation on talk television or talk radio since 1988.
Well, that puts us.
Oh my God, I need a
that
life.
makes us look like newcomers.
Yeah, newcomers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The effort that takes. Think about it.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, Arnie, thanks for calling in, and thanks for being a big part of the Progress Report over most of these years. Maybe, I think, you've been a guest on for many, many years, and very frequently.
At least a dozen times. And I'm going to tell you, the metrics that we do have, where we started putting our videos up, the shows where Arnie was involved got the most looks every time.
Yeah.
They really did, because they were, in addition to being informative, they were extremely entertaining.
Yeah. And Arnie, I have to just mention, one of the things I enjoyed when you were coming down here was you came with Marty, and I know you miss him dearly, as you would. You were such a great team, and he was your number one top defender. And one time, somebody made a comment that was not kind to you, which I should have cut the caller off, and Marty let me know how outraged he was about that. So I just want to mention that. It was great to know him as well as you.
Yeah. Well, let me just say something. I miss him too. He used to kid me when we'd get in the car, and he'd say, "Driving Miss Arnie." And it was like, this is like our routine all the time.
Yeah.
But in an interesting way, Bob, I hid behind Marty. Marty was the more personal one. Marty knew everyone. Marty would open doors to so many people I would never have met, and to a large extent, I'm the politician, but he's the people person. And I miss that aspect of my life, because it was so important. And again, you actually gave me an opportunity to talk in Manchester, a place that I'm familiar with, I kind of know about, but I'm going to be following what's going on in the mayor's race. I mean, you may no longer be on the air. Now, who's going to replace you? Is there going to be a progressive voice on TV in Manchester?
I don't know the answer to that.
We're going to leave that to them, Arnie, but I can tell you that Bob and I are already working on a digital platform that we may be able to do remotely even after he moves. So we're trying to see what we can put together.
Wait, Bob, where are you going?
I'm going to the great state of Michigan, a totally blue state with great female leadership. That's all I can say. It does not help me escape the winters.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. Good luck with whatever happens. And you are very lucky. Michigan is a great state. And again, it's, as you point out, it's women leaders. And what women say is, this is what I'm running on, elect me, and then guess what they do? They deliver. Yeah. They deliver. Yeah. And that's the most important thing. They connect the dots between the language they use in the campaign and the policies that they embrace. And I frickin' love them.
Yeah.
Because we freaking love you, Arnie.
Yeah. So
take care. Good luck, you guys.
Thanks for calling and for everything, Arnie. We'll stay in touch, I hope.
You're welcome. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, Arnie. Thanks for calling. Brendan, I got your note. If you can just cut away and show our two handsome and attractive guests, I will be able to leave my seat and get the guest... I went through all that. Yes, we have a third guest. This is a precedent-setting thing on the set of the Progress Report.
Couldn't keep him away, Bob.
And it's
all here to
none
celebrate
other than
you.
my good friend and the guy I enjoy so much calling Mr. Democrat, because nobody deserves that title anywhere, especially in the state of New Hampshire, than the Honorable Raymond Buckley in his many years as the party chair, when he's helped and been a major factor in turning this state around from being reliably Republican And that was in the days when the Republicans were somewhat reasonable, to being the person that's turned New Hampshire into a contested state, leaning more Democratic than Republican.
Very unreliably Republican.
So he had a tremendous success, and it's been an honor to have him here, and he's been on our program many, many times. And I hope somebody will be here to make you available to be on this program or something similar in the future. By the way, we've tried to recruit a couple people to maybe take over this slot now that we're leaving, although Mike's got some ideas about a social platform.
Yeah, we're not leaving. We're just moving.
But so you might want to think about that with all the other things you're doing. But let's look at the two other guests we got here that are here, and it is just wonderful to have them. The wonderful June Trisciani, a candidate for mayor of Manchester.
Alderman at large.
And Alderman at large. Topped the ticket in the last municipal election as Alderman at large. We love that. And nobody has done more for the city of Manchester, I don't think, over many, many years than Alderman Pat Long, Ward 3. Another great friend of the show who I could always call up pretty late in the day, or maybe Tuesday, and say, can you come on? And he said, well, I may have choir, but I'll come down and give you some time before I sing in the choir at my church.
And a full hour of content ready to go. That's the important thing.
You've been available on short notice too, Raymond, which is, one of the frustrations about this show is I call people up, and sometimes they don't call me back, and so I'm still waiting to know what they're going to do.
An outrage indeed.
Then I have to go to my backup, and you two are among my star backups, along with Arnie, we just heard from. So welcome to you both.
Have you guys praised Bob yet?
Not yet.
No, we haven't gotten to it.
I know I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. 40 plus years ago, when I first met Bob, I thought he was one of the most brilliant legal minds, political strategists. He was charismatic, and I was so angry with him that he was not considering running for governor, because I think he would have been a phenomenal governor of the state of New Hampshire. Now it's 40 years.
I kind of regret not doing that myself.
Now 40. Well, the problem is if it was 40 years and you had the party then that we have now, then you could have gotten elected otherwise, because that was right dab smack in the middle of those 16 years we didn't win anything.
Yeah. Well,
you all remember those years.
There was a time when I was very much in the news and very well known because of my position.
Hero.
Taking on the licensing of the Seabrook plant through that
nuclear
regulatory.
You had national
kangaroo court process.
Yep. But you could have raised money nationally.
There was a wonderful friend of mine also involved in that named Paul McEachern, the late Paul McEachern, and he and I both discussed it. This was the time. The warning sirens are going up around the seacoast, and people are saying, what's that about? This plant could blow up? Yeah, the balloon could go up, and those sirens could go off, and it would be very bad to be on Hampton Beach. And, that was the time. And I said to Paul, well, one of us has got to do this. And Paul said, well, I'm going to do it. And I said, well, I'll support you. And that was the...
So Bob was the lawyer for the Seacoast Anti-Pollution League, SAPL.
Well,
Some of us regular folk were not members of that high-falutin one, but we were just part of the clamshell alliance. We just marched and got arrested.
Indeed, you got arrested.
Yes.
1,414 in the
largest I was one of them.
Civil disobedience in the state of New Hampshire's history.
I was a minor, and they say, do your parents know you're here? Like, who the hell do you think dropped me off?
They're right over there.
They're up there waiting.
I walked.
That's a good lead into what I wanted to say about Bob. I mean, my first knowledge that Bob was involved with the Clamshell Alliance is when Rennie Cushing, when I first got elected to state rep, and I had a conversation with Rennie, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize Bob. So. What was that? When they had that demonstration there, it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was on the wrong side of the fence. I was on the other side of the fence. That when they would cut the fence, I was
welding it back together.
I was making double time.
You were working at the site?
I was working on the site.
No kidding.
Yeah, with all the stadies from all over to New England.
Yeah, they brought everybody in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Getting double time. I'm 30-something years old. So that was the first that I heard that Bob was involved in that. And then when Bob became elected, Bob was my go-to guy. My go-to guy for energy, for a lot of stuff that I wasn't sure where I was going to vote. Yep. I talked to Bob, got clear-minded as to what to do. So, so I started realizing that, being a Democrat means being a Democrat. There's no, there's no middle ground. You're a Democrat is a Democrat. So I know at a Christmas party, a Democratic Christmas party, I got this, and I've been looking at it for 15 years, hanging up on my board down on the TV room. And in my mind, nobody's plumbed me up more. An old iron worker saying, straighten me out. Nobody's plumbed me up more than Bob. And I'm not foolish enough to think that my political career is because of me. There are people that put their 2 cents in that bring you, that give you that,
Plumb you up,
that
right?
plumb me up and give me that luxury. So Bob, I don't think there's anybody more deserving than you to be getting this that I've been looking at for 15 years. And when I saw it last week, I says, okay, I know who needs this.
Yes, indeed.
True blue Democrat. Absolutely.
There you go.
The whole inspiration for this program getting off the ground was that sitting around at the Manchester City Library Auditorium one day, 14 years ago, and somebody got up to complain about the lineup on this channel on Wednesdays.
Right.
And it was not a progressive lineup, let us say.
Yeah.
Let's put it mildly. And somebody said, well, can somebody do something about that? And I kind of raised, well, maybe I could, I can talk all right, I guess. And anybody want to help? And Mike Farley said, and so we said we'd do it. And he came up with the name, the Progress Report, which has worked very well for us. And I still think it's wrong that screen says the Progress Report with Bob Backus and not Bob Backus.
I'm gonna
Mike
get into
Farley.
a little bit of more detail about this. People may not know, but the reason I raised my hand was because I was involved in Manchester Public Television, completely aside from this. It was a project that my son and I got involved in because he was very into video production, and they had a wonderful resource down by the Mill Yard. It was a community center. There were hundreds of people there. They would allow you to use equipment, editing equipment, videotaping equipment. You could sign it out and go do videos, and that's what we did. We edited videos, and so when this happened at that city committee meeting, the two of us came together, and like peanut butter and jelly or peanut butter and chocolate, it kind of worked out pretty good. And we've been doing it ever since. Originally, it was just a tape program.
That's right.
And I want everybody to know, was on the other side of the camera. I was not supposed to be out here. I was not supposed to talk. I was not supposed to have anything to do with that.
Well, you kept saying you have a face for radio.
Well, it's what it is. What can I do about it? Thanks, Dad. I love you. But I really, I was kind of an accidental addition to this program. I was supposed to do the technical stuff with my son, who stayed on with us.
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge that, Brian.
I wanted to acknowledge Brian
before
too.
He passed away.
Tragically, he's not among us anymore. And but he was for quite a while served as our director, which Brendan is doing out there.
Brendan's been helping us for years now.
Brendan's been excellent, but he Brendan and his predecessors could get a break because Brian would come in and he would be our director, and we had a very unique thing there. The only show with our own director.
Yeah, we brought in our own team, and let me tell you,
we really miss Brendan.
He would keep us in line. He would, Bob, you're slouching. Sit up straight.
Oh yeah, he was tough. You're over. You're going over. You got to stop right now. Yeah.
But it was. It started out as a dad and son project, and it morphed into this. And I'm really proud of what we've done. We've tried to. I don't think there was more than a couple shows where, out of necessity, it was just Bob and me talking. Because I always said, certainly for my sake, no one wants to hear what I got to say. You know what I mean? The point was to get a good guest on, a guest who knew something, a guest who could inform us, and hopefully do it in an entertaining way. And by the way, say good things about Manchester.
Yeah.
We've never failed to keep a positive attitude about the city of Manchester and
what is it with the people that are obsessed with tearing the city down? It is the weirdest part of the folks. Why are they living here if they hate this city so much?
Yeah.
I just
can't understand
don't get it.
And by the way, I don't understand the hate.
Yeah.
Look around. There are so many great things. We could, again, don't want to hear me talking. We could go right down this panel here, and every one of you could come up with a new great thing about the city of Manchester that's happening right now.
I've concluded, and I'm going to say it. What they're really saying is, there's too many people of color in this city, and that scares me. I think that's what it is, because our crime is actually going the other way. Yeah. We have more to offer of diversity in the sense of what you want to do, between the different activities and the things that we have. This city has come alive.
The commerce is much more diverse than it ever was.
Remember when you could lay down on Elm Street and not worry about getting run over?
We can try that later. We're gonna try that. Right, you're going to do it. I'll film it. But I think the reality of it is people just don't like change. Mm-hmm. I've been here all my life, as you guys, and it's something that we're growing as a city, but we still tend to behave and act like a small town at times. And I think if we don't go with it, and the drill, you all know people that are afraid of change, and I have been, fortunately. I seem to campaign all the time now. That's what I do. But being out knocking doors and talking to people, and even talking to people on both sides of the aisle, what I'm finding is there's a large group that we're fundamentally all looking for the right thing. I think what we notice more is the people that have the louder voices and use the louder voices. And social media, we've given the platform for people to be behind their phone or be behind their keyboard to just kind of be out there and bark, but. When you have those one-to-one conversations, it's a very different thing.
But I think it's working. I wanted to comment on this. I took a look at the sign-ups for the municipal election here in Manchester, and I'm actually surprised there were a lot more vacancies up and down the wards. I look at my Ward 8. We don't have those kind of vacancies, and we had a lot of vacancies. And I think it's like, who needs it? Because the shrill...
It's the fewest number of people signed up to be poll workers.
That's what I'm talking about, selectmen and moderator.
Nobody even filed for clerk in 3 different wards. Another ward is moderator and clerk. Ward 8, we only had 2 people file for selectmen. That's never happened.
No, I know, because you know the people who they are that go out and they've been running the elections there for years, and they're sick of it. Yeah. And that's the kind that's there's an intimidation out there that
I think there is intimidation out there, and I think it's they're getting abused. I mean, people should be thanked for doing this, and instead they're getting abused. I mean, I think the whole uproar about the false claim that the 2020 election was stolen from Trump has just poisoned the well, and those election workers at I just saw on the news today that Rudy Giuliani, formerly a lawyer, finally admitted that he did not tell the truth about those 2 women that were working polls in some polling place in Georgia that testified so powerfully.
And he should pay through the nose, because those women were terrorized.
They were terrorized.
Yes. People went to their house.
Yeah. And, and Trump absolutely denounced them himself. Oh, they're stuffing suitcases with ballots. There they are. And it was all
ginger mints.
Yeah,
ginger mints.
But
don't pass ginger mints when you're counting ballots.
The point of people not filing, there are 87 positions on the ballot in the city of Manchester. 49 of them, no opposition.
Right.
Wow.
49 people are elected because they don't appear on the primary, so you don't get write-ins. So unless you beat them in a write-in in November, they're golden.
So how do we fill these positions if people aren't signing? And we have 2 wards with nobody's willing to be the ward clerk?
3.
3. Holy smokes. What's the city's clerk's
Well, the moderator gets to fill that, except in Ward 5 where there's no moderator either.
Right.
So at that point, I think the selectmen vote.
I think the selectmen have to vote on one and pick one to be a moderator. But it's tough, and it's kind of a challenge that we're running into across the city, particularly with the young professionals. And you find this with the young Dems. These are time-consuming. If you're doing this job well, and Pat can attest, and I've, when I first met you and Pat on the Heritage Commission, and all the mentoring that I get from Pat as well, is this is technically probably a 3/4 time job, And, you know, it's not a super high paying position. We've got young professionals that would be so well suited and we could use their voice, but they're at home, you know, they're in their career mode. They're trying to buy a house, which they can't afford these days. They're raising
your own staff
children.
too.
You're
know,
your
and
own,
again, that's
you're
the New Hampshire
everything.
way. Right. That's the New
You're
Hampshire
everything,
way.
and it's hard to kind of, you know, get the younger professionals involved in this because one, it's absolutely terrifying if you don't, you know, the first time you jump in, it's not easy. Knocking on strangers' doors. I'm weird. I happen to love it, but it's not easy. Vicious opponents.
I'm going to talk about vicious opponents. You know,
you get attacked, and you have to kind of develop. And there's times that, I mean, we make decisions at every board meeting that some people just don't like, and we hear about that. Other times we make a decision and they call, but that's part of. I'm reminded regularly from, you know, several of my mentors too but that's what the job is. That's kind of the leadership role, and it's tough to do that when you're not really getting paid and you're not.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle. It's not a job.
Being an elected official in Manchester, you see firsthand. You know, Manchester, I've always said, is in the eye of the beholders. I don't have to look for positives. I see it on a daily basis, just by being elected. And those that are slamming the city of Manchester are not able to get elected. So I could see where they're not seeing the beauty of Manchester, right? Because they don't want to acknowledge.
But they use that perception, that negative perception. They feel that is a campaign position to take.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and oftentimes they haven't even lived here more than 10 years.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
that's irritates the loving heck out of me.
Well, and if you don't love your city and if you don't see the positives, how can you actually put your hat in the ring to govern it? You can't inspire people. You can't pull people together if you're going to be negative about everything. And you know, we have our faults. We know that. We're not living in a bubble. We have to work on it.
Yeah, so I go to a My Turn event because I like to see what the school district's doing with these troubled kids that I've known were troubled kids, and we get a West High graduate telling us I never dreamed. I was a freshman and a sophomore, never had a dreams. Dreams don't come true to me. I never needed a dream. I was getting D's and F, failing school, and he says, since I joined My Turn as a junior, I've now been accepted into 11 colleges, and I've learned how to dream. I'm like, why isn't everybody hearing this? You know, our school district is not doing their job. Look at this kid. Come on.
We're not doing a good enough job of promoting that stuff, though, and that's one of the things I hear a lot of times is people will ask me, you know, is the school district as bad as people are saying? And it's like, no. We're just, you know, we're not doing a good enough job.
Let me ask you, I want to talk about promotion because we've seen a lot of branding and that kind of promotion, and that rubs people wrong. You know, that's spending money on branding. You know, but it's important. We understand it's communication. It's effective communication, and it's important. But is it working? Have those investments worked for the school district, for the city of Manchester?
I think, I mean, on the school district side, I can't really speak to has it worked or not. I think they're still, you know, our superintendent is still fairly new. We're giving her some room. She's kind of drinking from a fire hose. She's doing an amazing job, but there's more things to do. But the branding activity on the city side, I think it's getting a bad rap because, and this I'll get my marketing education background in, it's not branding, let's slap a new logo on it and put lipstick on the pig.
This is a developing thing that's moving out into the neighborhoods.
Yes, so this
identity
is how
building.
do we build the identity and how do we capitalize on the positive things in Manchester? Because if you'll notice for, you know, other communities, when they start capitalizing on things, it starts to bring in, and it helps with economic development. It's going to help us with our airport. You know, our airport is very strong.
It's going
gangbusters, and it has to do more. And we need people to fly out of it. We need people to come to this area. You know, we're in a beautiful state, and Manchester's a great
airport,
hub.
By the way, it is the Ward 8 airport. I just
the Ward 8 airport.
You're welcome.
But the branding project is really just to, you know, there is a large amount set aside. You know, it's a small amount right now for the agency to just kind of pull people together and get the input. So there is Discover Manchester. I can't remember the website right now, the URL, but there is. If you go to the economic development webpage, you'll see that there is a questionnaire that's out, and it's getting fresh eyes to look at our city differently because I've been here all my life. I have my views. But having someone else come in, and it's always really interesting when we worked on the master plan for the planning board, it was nice to get that fresh perspective and have people come and, you know, walk around the city and make observations.
Well, how rank and file
And-
people were showing
yeah.
up. You know, that's what's exciting. You know?
Well, two things. One, look what the national people, when they do assessments, how high Manchester rates.
Yes.
There's no skin in the game. If this was truly a troubled city, we wouldn't be at the top of these lists after lists after lists. And two, you know, my job is I hire hundreds of young people, all in age. Where do they live? They're not choosing to live in Portsmouth or Nashua or Concord. They're all in Manchester because they see this as a vibrant city.
Sure.
You know,
Well, it's slightly more affordable than some of those towns too, isn't it?
no.
Well, and you
Old
never,
days, yeah.
and you never hear our naysayers complain about the money that's going to them having a platform to be naysayers.
Yeah.
Public TV.
Yeah.
We don't have to have this. We could save that money that we're giving to public TV, but we don't. But you don't hear the naysayers saying, hey, you know, why don't we start saving this money? You know, it's pick and choose.
Yeah, certainly I'd consider this a want rather than a need if we're tightening belts in a city.
Absolutely. But it is a want, but how do you say, you know, to Anthony Williams, how do you say no to him? How do you say no with Mary? You know, this is something that these rank and file people love, and they do a great job, and they have a following.
Yeah.
You know, how do you say no to them?
Yeah.
Right?
Everybody
let
has
them
a
have
voice.
It. Let them have it.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, at one time it was a big community of creative people. I would love to see it get back to that. I know there's some big changes in the works here. They're moving to a new studio location. Maybe there's some opportunities there, and I would encourage them to.
The MCAM board was a phenomenal experience. I got to at one point be the treasurer. I was the vice president. Then I was president. Then when I got elected state chair, I resigned, and the next thing I knew, it was gone.
It was a real rapid downfall, and
Yeah.
it was a sad thing. It was the loss of a community. It was a very sad thing.
The hero of that board was June Craig, by the way.
Yes.
She kept everything together.
Maybe we can get it back.
Yeah.
But I think that's an important piece of it too. And you know, Pat, Michael and I met on the Heritage Commission, and I think that's an important thing. Is there are board seats available to get involved in the community that don't have the heavy lift of being an elected official, and things
But
like
they're
that.
necessary.
They're
There's work
absolutely
that comes
necessary.
across their table, and it
Yeah.
has to get moved.
And
you
that's
know?
a way that we can kind of bring some fresh life and new life in. I never would have considered running for office had I not done the Heritage Commission and then the Planning Board. It never would have crossed my mind. But I think it's a good way for people to get involved, and then you can bring those creative ideas back and
there's
build it
a
out.
lot. There's conservation, there's arts, there's the Heritage Commission, Planning Board and Zoning Board. Those are a little bit more serious, a little bit more
Waterworks
paperwork
Commission,
involved.
Highway Department, Parks and Recs Commission. We have a million opportunities, and I think people just we don't do a good enough job kind of, I mean,
They're on the website. You can go on the.
They are. You can go on the website.
And as the City of Manchester website.
Well, that'll be part of your agenda when you're mayor, right?
Well, I kind of might target people now when they're talking. There was a woman on the west side who lives on the water and by Parks land and was having some challenges, and it's like, you know what, you would be great on the Parks and Recs Commission. It's something you're passionate about, and it's been a great fit in finding people that are passionate about something and getting them on the right board, and the boards are much more accessible, I think, for people, and where we need to start building out our younger.
And also the work they do with the city departments. Each board has, involved with different city departments, and you get to see, what goes on but you get to appreciate the volume of day-to-day work that has to get done. I mean, you miss one day of trash collection, that's
the
a
excitement
problem.
of getting nominated and the BMA approving you.
Yeah.
That's 2 feet right in the city of Manchester. They're very excited.
Yeah.
And it's really that simple. Put in a
It is
resume.
easy. Mayor Ted
not a difficult
Gatsis
thing.
was the mayor that allowed me to go on the Heritage Commission.
I
so-
remember getting that call. I remember getting
So
that call.
if I can get by Ted Gatsis, anybody can.
It took a while, but he appointed me to the Heritage Commission also.
So
Now, mind you,
the
when
point
we
is,
were,
it's doable.
When
It's-
we
it's-
run it, there was no one really on it, and they never had a quorum. So I think we.
Oh no, we had. I don't think we missed a quorum once. We had a very good commission.
When I first joined, there was no quorum, and I was prompted by a contractor
I followed
who
you, though.
came down.
You were there
yeah.
when I showed up.
Yeah, and we were having trouble getting a quorum to actually
Yeah.
vote on things. So for me, it was a
So I
little
was
bit
the
of
sucker.
it was a desperate path.
Now we see what it was. I was the sucker to make a quorum. Okay, I see how it was. But anyway, it was a
Well, it
great
worked.
experience.
It worked,
Yes,
yeah.
it did. It was a great experience. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I'd encourage anyone to do it. I really would.
So Bob, you have held so many roles in this community over the decades.
Yeah.
Tell us some of your experiences. I mean, we can come back in a couple of weeks and talk
Yeah,
about
yeah, we
our
gotta hear
thoughts.
from Bob.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you know, I'm kicking myself because I didn't do more. I admire you people. I think you've done more than I have here. But I've loved being part of the city of Manchester. I did serve on the Conservation Commission, and you know, you allowed me once to be the city Democratic chair.
And you were a leader in the legislature.
And in the legislature. I'm very proud to represent my part of Manchester, Ward 12 in the legislature for 4 terms. So those are the things I've done. And one of the things I've enjoyed about this program is the guests we've had. We've had department heads and so many excellent people that are running for office. It's distressing to hear about all the vacancies on the ballot this year, which is lamentable. But the people that put themselves out to run, and we have 2 great examples right here with us now. These are excellent people. It just frosts me when people, you know, say a politician with a disdain, and that word's got a disdain. And I've said this so much that Mike's tired of hearing it, but the word politician comes from the Greek word polis, which means to be a member of a polis, a city. It's to be a citizen of a city. That's where it comes from. And we are just so fortunate that people like our 2 guests here, Pat and you, June, are seeking office city and have done it before and made a real contribution. But the others, you know, the people that are first time, you know, running for, you know, alderman, and we've had some people on. It's just been a real pleasure to meet them and learn that they're doing this for the best of reasons, no question about it. They want to give back to the community, and they think that's a good way to do it. And as you mentioned, June, certainly another way is to, you know, see if you can't get yourself on a board of something you care passionately about, which I absolutely hope that'll always be a big part of it. So it's been a wonderful place to live, and I've really enjoyed the opportunity to be part of this community. I had, you know, I grew up with very fortunate. I grew up in Goffstown. June knows that very well because we've spent many hours out there sharing time with friends out there at the coffee shop. But I did get to go overseas and live overseas. I lived in Boston for a year as a law clerk to a federal judge, with the great Peter Woodbury. And then I went overseas to an assignment in Nigeria, in northern Nigeria. I actually had a job as an employee of the government of northern Nigeria, a legal job. And I could go on and on about that. But I had, the world was my oyster at that time. You know, I had my Harvard law degree. I had these wonderful experiences. And I could have gone anywhere in the world. I could have gone into the Foreign Service. I could have gone to the World Bank. A lot of my colleagues in this program called Fellows in Africa, who were either lawyers or graduates of the Sloan School of Management at MIT. And a lot of them did exactly that. And I came back to New Hampshire. Kind of my hand was forced because my father had died, and my mother had died. I'm sorry, my father was in real extreme emotional pain. So I came back for that, and I've just said I've always been so happy to be live most of my life here in New Hampshire with this community. And I've always liked politics, and if you like politics, there's no better place in the
place to be.
entire world than New Hampshire and maybe even Manchester. We have more elections than anybody else. They're honest, fair elections. People care passionately about it, and we all agree that the New Hampshire primary is a treasure that needs to be preserved and protected, and we're fighting a good fight. Ray's certainly going to be intimately involved with that to protect it one more time, and I have no doubt that we'll succeed. But to be part of this world And I was talking last week with Lou D'Alessandro. We were reminiscing. Happy birthday party today, Lou. I know that's what you're doing. We were talking about, the world beats a path to our door here in New Hampshire, and with the New Hampshire primary. And Raymond will remember this. One of my candidates I supported early on was a fellow named Jerry Brown.
You did indeed support him.
Huh?
Yes, you did support him.
I did. I supported him over Ted Kennedy in 1980. That was pretty interesting. He was a very interesting guy, and I can remember going down to the old Wayfair where everybody hung out. The media stars and and so forth hung down there. And I went down there and ran into Jerry Brown, and he was talking with a fellow named. Who wrote The Making of the President?
Teddy White.
Teddy White. And I was listening to these two folks chat away, and they were saying, they were talking about what caused Europe to get out of the medieval period into the more modern period, and they sort of agreed it was because that's when the Roman aqueducts failed, so they had to do something.
They had to.
That was the kind of thing I just thought was fascinating to be part of, and I was just sitting and listening to this conversation. And, boy, this is really great stuff. And real interesting people to be a part of.
That bar was a classic. That bar was a classic. I remember as a young guy being in the bar there. Drinking age was 18 back then.
That's right.
And there were a number of them that were hammered. Mm-hmm. It was like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, and then waking up the next morning, they're on the Today Show. Sharp as sharp can be. I was like, how the heck do you do that? It was unbelievable. I told Jack Jermon that story.
There was a kind of a tradition in journalism, was there? You're supposed to be a hard worker and a hard drinker.
Oh.
I think. And they served them up down there for sure. It was it's been really a terrific experience to be able to experience all that, and I hope it's certainly going to continue. But any event. What do we do next?
No, tell us more stories,
well,
Bob.
I could go on with stories and stories and stories, but all I can say is it's been wonderful to meet the people come here, and I'm still on a kind of a first name Davis with Lanny Davis. Mm-hmm. He's a Yale guy. I'm a Harvard guy, but he ended up representing this guy Michael Cohen that finally he turned against Trump, and I've had some interesting.
That's right. I forgot. Lanny Davis represented him.
He did,
that, didn't he? Yeah.
Not his courtroom lawyer. He did another courier when he actually went to the courtroom to where his.
Lanny doesn't do that
anymore. But he
was. If you haven't read his book following the 2016, his analysis was very good.
Lanny?
He wrote a book, and of course I bought it.
Yeah.
And read it, and he was spot on.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, it's just all these people show up here, and it's just been really, really great fun to be part of that, and I've certainly enjoyed it.
Well, I'm going to tell a story then. I can remember being a wee little boy, and I was present at that big protest at Seabrook. I went out there. I couldn't get myself arrested. But I was there. The crowds were great. I was a good boy. I was a Catholic school boy, so I did not climb the fence. Okay, I did not jump on the fence. I saw Pat there. He looked menacing. But Bob Backus was the hero because I was on that side of the argument. I could not see any sense in putting a nuclear power plant between the beach and safety. It didn't make sense to me. So Bob, I read about him. I didn't know a lot about him, but what I did know about him was he would win every now and then, which was fantastic and really unexpected, at least from my perspective. And so I'm going to jump ahead many, many years, and I'm walking into a Labor Day breakfast at the Greek Cathedral in Manchester. And walking across the street is this gentleman wearing an engineer's hat, or a railroad man's hat. And turns out it was Bob Backus, and this was just a little bit, Bob, before that day in the Manchester City Library where we began this project. So my point I'm trying to make is I had this hero as a kid, and then all of a sudden, in rapid succession, I meet him, and I'm doing a TV show for 14 years with the guy. And if you don't think I've learned a lot just sitting next to this guy, in just about every aspect, from information things to just the way he treats people, the way he looks at things. I still got a long way to go, Bob, but I've made a lot of progress sitting here next to you. I got to say, it's
well, you're all so kind. It's been really great fun. By the way, going back to Seabrook, I never got arrested there either. and I was talking to some of the clamshell people. You know, we've had the clamshell people had a major presence in New Hampshire. At one time, 3 members of our 24-member New Hampshire Senate had arrest records at Seabrook. Bev Hollingworth, Clifton Below, and Bert Cohen.
Yep.
They all had arrest records at Seabrook. And I remember one time, and I said, you know, at the time I was the lawyer. I was leading the legal effort to stop the thing. Yeah. And I said, I had this quaint idea that a lawyer probably shouldn't break the law. And
There's a lot of people around
I regret that. I'm sorry I didn't go over the fence with you people.
Pat would have just tied it up and thrown you out, though.
So, in any event, that may be the retirement job I should really do, is write my own personal history of that with some of the great characters so much involved in that fight.
Well, I'd buy that book. I would love to.
William Loeb thought we were all communists.
We got one side of the story.
He thought nuclear power meant power. You know, and he wanted more power for the United States. And if we were against this power, we must be commies. And oh boy, on and on and on. And
how many editorials did Loeb do against you?
Oh, many.
I think there's a book right there.
Yeah.
Cartoons.
I even got some threatening calls. You know. I understand they're talking about these poor women trying to help the elections in Georgia get attacked by Trump and Rudy Giuliani, which is in the news. That happened to me a couple of times, and it's definitely terrifying. I was just being a lawyer representing a client that had. And I had a hell of a lot of support, as you folks know who were here. It was a lot of support. So, you learn a lot. And in any event, it would be quite an account. I came here to Manchester, and I started out at a firm, one of the great firms in town, Devine Millimet. And I was there for 5 years. And I was a brand new associate there. And one of the partners came along, a fellow named John Holland. I don't know if you remember him at all. Good Democrat. He wanted to run for Senate at one time.
Former Democratic National Committee man in the 60s.
Was he? Yeah. And the great Joe Millimet was the leader of that firm. What an amazing
Our
guy
1946 nominee for U.S. Senate.
Was he? I didn't even know that.
I know. I didn't know it until I was looking through the history book. I was like,
you want to go over to Devine Millimet and ask them to give you their history of that firm, 75 years history. It's fascinating about how we got the lottery and how they, Joe Millimet helped to get around federal opposition, legal opposition to the lottery and so forth.
We got a call. Yeah. We love our callers. Hey, caller, thanks for calling in. How can we help you?
Hello, I'd like to say thank you to Bob Backus and Ray Farley. Mike Farley.
Appreciate it.
And your guest, June, and Ray Buckley, and Pat Long, for all that you do for this community of Manchester, New Hampshire. And again, I'd like to say that I enjoyed the show for many years, and I wish you the best of everything, Bob, in your new venture. And again, this is Bob calling.
Yep. Recognize you, Bob. You've been calling. You've been a regular caller on the show, and we appreciate you.
And thank you so much for calling in and for your comments. I really mean a lot to me. I really appreciate that. You're doing.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thanks for the call.
So anyhow, just to go back to my story, I guess this is story time for me tonight. But Holland came down. He said, there's this conservation organization we have here in New Hampshire, the Society of Protection of New Hampshire Forests, our largest and oldest established conservation organization. And they have some concerns about this this power plant project down on the coast. It's in a town called Seabrook. And I said, well, what's their concern? They said, well, they helped pass the law that set up the state siting process as a state permitting process. Site Evaluation Committee, which you guys are familiar with, and it was brand new, and they got this application coming in for the first nuclear plant proposed here in New Hampshire. And they just want to make sure this law works the way they intended it to. It was supposed to be a one-stop licensing operation. It didn't work out that way, but that's what it was supposed to be. And so would you be interested? I said, yeah, I think I would be. And so I went down and I began to learn something about it. I didn't know anything about energy or nuclear, had no opinion on it, nothing. But I certainly learned. And I subsequently, finally went and said, how come they ended up with Divine Billup and me, and ended up with me? It turned out that all the other law firms in the state of equal size were conflicted out because they represented utilities that were in the project. You know, Warren Reno, Ransmeyer, Spellman, McLean, they all, Sheehan, they all had the utility interests in the project. So I learned something from that too. So that's how that came about.
The rest, as they say, is history.
And it tells you one thing, as Joe Millet once told me, the most important question you'll have about any case is, do I take the case? And when I took this case, I didn't think it was going to take up 25 or 30 years. My principal legal activity would be this in federal courts and administrative hearings and, you know, state courts and the state Supreme Court again and again and again. But it was fascinating, and I certainly learned a lot, and it got me into knowing something about how important energy policy, and it still is. Energy policy still is.
And I want to point out there's only one cooling tower in Seabrook.
That's right.
Supposed to be two.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. In fact, that plant, if it was any justice, it would have been named for John Henry Sununu.
Have another call. Great.
Well, one was going to be the Thompson plant, the other should have been the Sununu Senior, not the.
Go ahead, caller. You're live on the Progress Report. Thanks for calling in.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. This is Jen Drosiak, and
Hi, Jen.
Bob,
Hi,
I
Jen.
just wanted to thank you for 14 years of fantastic programming. My father and I have been watching weekly for years, and thank you for all of your work on the show. We really appreciate it, and wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. I'm actually laughing a little bit right now because you reminded me that I've actually protested Seabrook a handful of times in my teens and early 20s. So I too walked Route 107 towards Seabrook Station. I did not attend, but I was on WMUR. So I'll have to go dig up that VHS tape at my parents' house. But June, good luck on your candidacy for mayor. You're wonderful, and Pat, you are the best alderman I have ever had in Ward 3, and one of the best aldermen the city has ever had. So, to all of you, thank you for your hard work in the city, and what a great programming, and we wish you well.
Thank you so much.
That's very nice.
By the way, she's a great contributor herself, isn't she?
Yeah,
I know. She's still doing it. Every spring she go out and see the ponds we have in Manchester all got cleaned up.
Yeah.
And I did help her with that for a few years when I was more able to be that energetic.
Our biggest advocates.
Climb
for
around.
that.
So, and take care of maintaining the postings that we have and the trailheads and so forth about being careful about. Being safe in the woods.
Jen's one of the positives of the city of Manchester.
She is.
You know?
Yeah. You don't have to look too hard. You know.
No.
It should be more thank yous.
We have said that on the show so many times. Without the volunteers, nothing would go on. There are so many volunteers in Manchester, and the thing is, these are people. Just when you go on Facebook and you post these things against the system or this department, well, that's people that are getting up every day, working till the bell rings and trying to help out, and you got to remember that we're all on the same team here. We're all looking for the same thing. And that's one thing that between the two of us, I've been probably more aggressive in calling out the other side of certain issues. And I'm not going to apologize for that. I think sometimes you have to do it. I hope I've been judicious and fair when I've done it. But one thing we focused on is the good parts where people can come together. We've really tried to look at the positive side of things.
But I must say, I've been invited here. Bob would invite me, and not knowing what we're going to talk about, we'd have a conversation. Indeed, he'd ask me a question, and I'm like, the heck are you asking me that question for? Right? But I mean, we didn't hide the challenges that we had to work on.
Yeah.
And Bob wouldn't hide that. But we would accentuate the positive.
Yeah.
And recognize our challenges and what we're doing to work towards them.
Yeah.
And I think one thing you said, Bob, that struck me is when you were talking about, what you've done and everything you've done in the state, and you said, I wish I did more. And I think that there's a lot more that you've done that you don't recognize. I am the relative newcomer to the world of doing anything political and getting into it. You're an amazing mentor, and your insight into things has been crucial to all of us that want to follow and want to get into office and follow your leadership and follow what you're doing. So I appreciate that.
Oh my goodness.
And I am keeping your cell number handy,
goodness.
and I am calling you for that guidance, and you need to keep answering.
I certainly will. That is so flattering to hear. You're going to bring tears to my eyes with all these things.
Well, that's true, and it's not just you, June.
Somebody's
Bob
got to
has been very free with
Somebody's got to throw me a party and make it a roast, a real roast.
Okay,
this
we
is
can
getting
do
a little
that.
overwhelming here.
Well, I'm sure there's plenty of room for that. Let's see if we
can
can
do
put that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I have tried to reach out to a couple people that I thought maybe would want to take this seat over, with Mike or maybe,
it's like Led Zeppelin couldn't go on when John Bonham wasn't there. You just can't.
So far, the people I reached out to, they had busy lives and just didn't think they could do this, or maybe it wasn't their cup of tea. But in any event, I don't know what's going to happen to this hour here, but I hope somebody will come in and not do the progress report, but do something, because it's very rewarding. We've had a lot of fun, and in addition to the candidates we've hosted, I've really appreciated hosting the people who are cultural leaders here. Whether it's Peter Ramsey from the Palace, or John Clayton. What a treasure that guy is.
Yeah, we always did our Fisher Cat show. We used to do a Monarch show.
On our baseball shows, we had a lot of fun doing them. We hadn't done them the last couple of years, but we did have great fun with that, and our little raffles. And
I enjoyed that because I'd go out and deliver the gifts to people. I got to meet viewers. I mean, there really are people watching this show. It's it's great to know about.
Well, this show's ended up being mostly about me, which I don't necessarily want it to
That was
be.
the plan, Bob.
That's the luck to you.
And I just want to say, we're glad you're still serving and willing to continue to serve. Mr. Chairman, go on for a long time and keep doing the wonderful job you're doing. And I know you will be running and are running an awesome campaign for mayor, and I'm wishing you great success in that.
Thank you.
I just hope it goes really well. The city will be in remarkably good shape with your leadership. And I just would like to say, I also think that Joyce Craig deserves a lot of credit for the leadership she's provided for this city. She's got so much done. The last time she had an opponent who was a certain person that just walked out the door before us, and your campaign slogan was Craig Chaos. And I think people are saying, what? There's no chaos in Manchester.
Exactly.
The city functions. It functions quite well. Not perfectly, as we talk about. There are problems we got to work on. But this city functions, and we've had very capable and strong leadership, and it's been a wonderful thing to be able to support that leadership and the candidates, including you two. So I can't think of a better group of people to be on with us in this final show than Arnie by phone, Mr. Democrat, future Mayor Trisciani, and Alderman for so many good purposes, and state representative and delegation chair of our state delegation, Pat Long.
Gonna have to put up the walkie-off music, Bob. The clock just turned 8.
Yeah. Brian was here. You're on. You're done.
Thank you, Bob.
That's it.
Good night, Mrs.
Bye-bye.
McGillicuddy, wherever you are.